Hi everyone, welcome back to Cabin Crafts and Simple Living. And today I'm going to start a new series about how to hand make the band boxes that I make and sell in the store. Welcome to my very messy craft room upstairs of the shop. It is a disaster area. If I would to pan around with my camera, I look like something off of Hoarders Buried Alive. It is really bad. I keep saying I need to reorganize my craft room, but I have so many things I need to make. I just keep making mess on top of mess. But anyway, we're going to do this in a series like I did the folk art, because I really want to show you all the steps involved to making a band box. And I'm self-taught. No one showed me how to do this. I just kind of figured out how to do it on my own. And I have a book called Neat and Tidy by Nina Fletcher Little, and that's where I saw these antique band boxes, and a lot of them in the old days were covered with wallpaper. But I can't find historic wallpaper or wallpaper that looks historical enough to make these with. But the lady that is most credited with really making a lot of these, and if you go to a museum and see them, or if you go on the Antique Roadshow with some, they are going to be very, very expensive. Her name was Hannah Davis, and she was born in the late 18th century in Jaffrey, New Hampshire. And so she was a young lady that had a bit of a disability, I believe, and she never married. Poor thing. I mean, that some man lost out, because this lady was actually very, very smart. So her parents died, and she was not married, so she had no one to take care of her, and she had to figure out a way to support herself. And so she started making these boxes, all these different size boxes. And there were a lot of, in the early 1800s up in New England, there was a lot of cotton mills and woolen mills. The cotton was coming up from the South. The Industrial Revolution was really beginning, and it was really starting to young women were going to work in these mills, and they needed these. They needed to put their things in these. They would even put it in a sack, their box in a sack, and throw it over their shoulder, and all their stuff would be in a box. And she made all different sizes. And so I brought some here that I've made, and different sizes. Now this set stacks right here. Now when I go to sewing, I'll actually have the camera on close-up, but that's a stacking set. This little box I made with hand marbleized paper, and it was made up in Missouri. Oh gosh, what's his name? John Bielek, yeah, period papers. So this one is actual hand marbled paper, and then you can see inside I line them with reproduction copies of antique newspapers and different papers, and then they're all completely hand sewn. So this is a sweet little box. This one's special because the paper is hand marbled. Now these others that I have, and like this big beauty here, this one, this is my Early American Life tag. I was chosen an Early American Life several years in a row. I haven't done it since 22. You have to submit your artwork, and then they will put you in their directory of traditional American craftspeople, where it's judged by museum curators. And so I've been doing this, the boxes, about 10 years. So that's my tag, but that's the last time I entered was 22. So you can see this one, the inside, and then in the lid, I've got a cool reproduction whale journal page. So all of my period papers, these kind of papers, like these 3 boxes and this big box, all of this is from Monahan Papers up in Troy, Missouri, and they're at monahanpapers.com. I'll try and put that in the description of the video, but this is all reproduction papers, even the insides. Even the newspaper on the inside. She's got reproductions of 18th century newspapers, and I think they're so cool. So this is just a sampling. I took some over to Fort Deschard at Christmas time, and I sold several of them there, so this is what I have left. But I have a gentleman who came in, and he commissioned me to make a couple of boxes. for his hats. And so I thought I would show you all, since I'm going to have to do that, I've got to make two of the same size. So I thought I would show you all how I do it. And like I said, it's going to be a series. So I'm going to start with supplies. The first thing you're going to need is chipboard. This is going to be the side of the box, but this is chipboard. It's kind of like a little bit thicker than cereal box cardboard. I got this at Hobby Lobby. It's $5.99 for a 32 by 40 big square sheet of this. It's with the matte framing, the matte board and the framing board over in the framing department. That's where you get this. And so it's $5.99 for a big sheet. So you can get several boxes out of this size. And you will need, of course, either Mod Podge or watered down white school glue. You can even water down white school glue. You'll need a brush of some sort to put your glue on with. You will need your period papers or whatever paper you want to use, or wallpaper scrap. The gentleman that is I'm making these boxes for, I gave him some masculine paper. So this is like a marbleized paper. I'm going to need 2 sheets of this for the side. So this is going to be the pattern on one box. And this one, which is similar colors, is going to be the pattern on another box. So these are marbled papers, but they are reproductions of marbleized papers. They aren't actually hand done like that little box was. And so I've got those kinds of papers. I've got my lining paper. This is also from Monahan Papers. Like I said, she's got all sorts of reproduction copies of antique newspapers, and this is called a fracture. It's like a copy of a German baptismal certificate or a birth certificate or a marriage record. And we have a gentleman smoking a long pipe and his walking stick. So I thought this is masculine looking, so this we're going to put in his box. So that's going to be some of the lining. And again, this is how the papers come from Monahan Papers. They're like big 11 by 17 sheets. So it's going to take probably 3 or 4 sheets of this 11 by 17 to make a box. So again, you can get that from Monahan Papers. You're going to need crochet thread to sew with. And then I have 2 types of needles in here. I have a curved needle. This is like a curved needle. And then I have a big, like an upholstery type needle that this thread can fit through, because this is what we're going to sew our box with. We're going to wax our thread with some beeswax. And what this does is it helps keep your thread from, as you're sewing, it will like curl up and curly Q. You know, when you embroider, it does the same thing. It's going to keep your thread from doing that. Also, waxing it makes it waterproof and sturdier. So we're going to wax our thread. We will need an awl. And I've got this piece of balsa board that I bought that I use to poke my holes in the chipboard with when I go to sew. You can get this in Hobby Lobby in the leather department. You can also get the beeswax in the leather department, because a lot of times when people sew moccasins, they will thread their wax their thread. So you can see this has got lots of holes because it's what I punch my holes into. And then this handy little thing. This is a tarp clamp. Now you would get this at the hardware store. And what I do with this is whenever I got my box, I'll just use this one as an example. Once I've started stitching, we're going to always start with the bottom and the sides. Once I've started stitching a few inches around, then I go ahead and wrap the cardboard around and I clamp the box shut so that it's easier to sew. Otherwise, you're kind of fighting this thing the whole time. So a clamp, that's in the hardware store. You can get it at Lowe's, Home Depot, wherever the tarps are sold, because this is what people use to hold tarps down on those pop-up tents. So that's what you need. Here's a pack of repair needles that I got at, I think, either Walmart or Hobby Lobby, and it's got all different sizes of needles in it, plus that big curved guy. So you could get it's called a repair set, and it will work for sail, sacks, canvas, carpet, leather, and upholstery. So this is a heavy-duty needle set. So that's what you need. So you've got to have your cardboard, you've got to have your papers, you've got to have glue, you need scissors and a ruler. That goes without saying. And the easiest box to sew for a beginner is a round box. And you can see on the bottom, I don't put my pretty paper on the bottoms of these because nobody see. Well, that one does. You're a liar, Candy. That one does too. But anyway, I've started to where I don't put the pretty paper on the bottom so that I don't waste my pretty paper. So I'm going to put these guys away. And like I said, they stack. So the gentleman that wanted the band box, or wanted the hat boxes, he gave me the measurements for his box. And it was, what'd I do with it? Well, anyway, it was, I believe, 8 by 5 by 11. And we're going to make it into an oval. So it's 8 inches long, 11 inches long, 8 inches deep, and then the sides are going to be 5 inches tall. And the sides are what's going to wrap all around, and we're going to sew. So the first thing you need to do, like I said, we always start at the bottom, is I cut out my bottom. Here's my bottom of the chipboard. And I've already glued the Declaration of Independence on the back. Now you might say, oh my gosh, that was a valuable thing. Well, in early America, it maybe wasn't so valuable. I mean, they're finding these things. People have glued them to the lids of their trunks and everything else. So when you get your paper glued on, you need to burnish it down because you're going to get little air bubbles. And I actually just use the bottom of my big thing of Mod Podge and just scrub it and scrub it to the outside until it really adheres. And then what we're going to do, and I'm going to get that ready. Let me get some tissue here because I need to wipe off my brush. Once you cut your pieces out. So the only pieces I've cut out are the bottom and the big side. Because what I do when I get that done is I lay this down after the side's been sewn all around, and I trace around the bottom of it for the template for my lid so that I know the lid's going to fit over the top. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to take some of my glue and what I've done, if you notice, I've cut it bigger than what we need. And then I fringed it all the way around. I've just taken my scissors and cut little snips all the way around. And you're just going to take your glue and you're going to glue a few at a time. I'm just going to lay glue on the snips. It's easier to do it this way. I do a small section at a time. And you just, let me do it this way. You just fold and overlap all the way around. And especially on curved edges like this is why you want to do this, because you can't hardly fold over a straight edge. So you need to make snips. It's almost like when you're also sewing a dress. Sometimes you got to make little snips so you can sew on the curve. So you do that all the way around. And then when you get all of that glued down, I cut a piece for the inside of my bottom. And this measures after it's already all glued down around. So I've got one finished here that I'll show you. So here's the bottom of the inside. And then here's the outside. So the reason why I fold it in is so I mean, even when you sew around it, you probably wouldn't, but I just don't want to see raw cardboard edges. So this is going to be the inside of the box. This is going to be the outside of the box. Then I had to take a measuring tape. Let me get this back. I had to take a measuring tape and measure all around the outside circumference of my box. And then I give myself about 1.5 inches overlap. So whatever this measures all the way around, I think it was like 32 3/4 inches. I added an inch and a half to that. So I can have an overlap. So that's what this is for. So you see where it overlaps. See where it overlaps right there? Okay, so that's why you want to do that, because you don't want to measure it exactly, because then you're going to have to try to pull your box sides shut like a corset, and we don't want to do that. We want to have the overlap. It'll give it added strength. So after you get your bottom, then you're going to do the side. And this was a big old long piece. So like I said, my circumference was 32 3/4 or something like that, and then I added an inch and a half to it, and it came to like 34 1/4 long. And that board is 40 inches. That chipboard is 40 inches long on one long side, so you can get up to 40 inches long for a box. Now I have made boxes where I've had to sew the two pieces together and make it a really big box, but that doesn't happen very often. But you can see I've already taken here's my board without anything on it. And you want to do the pretty paper first. Like I said, I cut two pieces. So this was a full sheet of that 11 by 17 paper. I folded it in half, and now I've got two long sheets, and I glue it down to where it overlaps. And you'll see on this one, you might not be able to see it exactly, but it overlaps right down the middle. And since this is such a wild paper, I didn't have to worry about trying to match the edges like you do with wallpaper, because it's just, you can't really tell. It's just a riot of color and pattern. So the same thing is going to happen for this really pretty wavy marbleized paper. It's not going to matter. I'm not going to try to match it. It's going to just look really good. So you do this first, and as you can see, there's enough to hang around all the edges. So you're going to glue, fold, and glue. And be sure to put the glue on the board. Do not glue the paper. Trust me, you don't want, it's a mess. It will ruin. You want to glue this, because this is nice and stiff. You want to glue this board first. And then I kind of draw a pattern, and I'll just do that now so you can see with my pencil. You can see I drew a line with pencil, and now I know where to lay my glue side down on my board or on my paper and get a nice even edge all the way around. And so then that'll go about halfway down this board, and then you'll have to do that all over again with the other piece. Once you get that done, then you glue your newspaper or whatever you want to line the inside. And this is actually cut a little shorter or a little smaller than to fit. You want a little bit of about 1/4 of an inch of the decorative paper showing, so that when you go to put the lid on, this isn't sticking up over this and you start getting ruffled edges. So I've glued it all the way to the bottom, and then this is going to be the top edge of my box. And then we'll start folding this around and after we punch holes and all that, we'll start folding this around, and we can start sewing. So there you go. So that's part one. So I hope you get your supplies and things together. I used to sell kits online, but I was having to pre-cut all of the kits myself, and it really was time consuming. And so I'm just going to try to do a video series where you all can just completely do it yourself. Everything is easy to get. The only thing that you might have a problem getting, and it shouldn't be if you are used to ordering things online, is the historical papers. And so if you go to MonahanPapers.com, all of those papers that I just showed you and many, many more is on there. She's got tons of designs. So she's even got greeting cards and wrapping paper. It's just a very cool site. So if you go to that, You can get your paper then and gather all your supplies. And I cut out just a sneak preview. She's got copies of whaling paper journals, like whaling ships. They would do watercolor in their journals and things. So the lids of this man's hat boxes are going to be whales. I thought this was really masculine looking because, you know. Oh, and I also wanted to tell you too, another little snippet of history. Bandboxes have been around since at least the Elizabethan period, and I mean Elizabeth I. Remember those pictures of like the Puritans, and they had those big ruffed collars, those big like William Shakespeare. They started making boxes to put their ruff, it's called a ruff, to put their ruff collar in, or their fancy gloves. Later on in the late 19th century, men had those stiff collars that went in their shirts. It was called a band collar, so it's a band box. They would put those in the boxes to keep their shirt collars stiff. They were just used for all sorts of things. So this is a historical craft that's been around for at least 500 years. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you will watch part 2. And so thank you for watching.